Hello everybody, and welcome to my review of Hunter x Hunter Chapter 391. Now before we get into anything else, let me just quickly say, you can probably notice in my voice, I'm sick. My voice sounds nasally, it sounds rough, so sorry about that. I'm feeling well enough to record, but I am recovering from being sick, so apologies about that. Future videos, my voice will be much better, and yeah, sorry about that again. Hopefully it isn't too big of a deal. But that aside, yes, we will be doing, since Hunter x Hunter's come back now, weekly reviews, or reactions, or whatever you want to call it, of each chapter that comes out every week. Everyone's really excited, I'm really excited, you guys know my feelings on Hunter x Hunter, so this is just something I really wanted to do. Every week I will read the new chapter on stream, on my Twitch account, so if you're interested in doing that with me, it'll usually be Sundays. You can check out my Twitch account, you can follow me in the description or pinned comment, and yeah, we'll be doing that. But in addition to that, I do want to also do these sort of mini reviews for each chapter, where we go over the things that happened, and my thoughts on them, and you guys can share yours as well, and I think it'll be a pretty good time. It'll be very similar to my One Piece videos, just I guess these videos will be shorter, because each one will be about one chapter. And obviously through each of these reviews, I'm going to be talking about the things that strike me the most, but I'm not going to be talking about everything. I'm going to miss some things and leave some things out, so feel free to share things that you found interesting, or correct me on something if I say something wrong, or things like that. But through these, we'll be going over the most interesting parts of each chapter, along with what happens, and all that stuff. Now, in addition to Twitch, Twitter, to keep up with me on social media if you want, you can also check out my Discord server, where there are a ton of Hunter x Hunter fans in there who discuss the chapters every week. It's a great time. I'm a little bit biased, but I think it is. And yeah, you can check out the Discord server on there as well. But yeah, that preamble aside, let's get into Chapter 391, Clash Part 2. Now, some overall things to say about the chapter. What I find really interesting, and not necessarily surprising, is how well it flows from the last chapter, considering that we just had a 4+ year hiatus. I was telling people in chat as I was reading through it that it doesn't even feel real. It doesn't feel like the hiatus is done. It just feels to me like I forgot to read a chapter 4 years ago, and that I'm just reading it now for the first time. Because it was just so seamless from 390 to 391. There's so much continuity, and it just feels like it flows so well. And I think that's really important because, you know, every writer out there, if they take a 4+ year hiatus, they're going to be self-aware of the fact that people are heavily anticipating what's going to come next. And so there may be a bit of external influence for them to want to perform or do something huge to reward the people who've been waiting for so long, which may actually get in the way of the story that they're trying to tell. You know, Togashi could have easily been tempted into making this chapter about Kurapika, Chrollo, the rest of the Spider, Illumi, Hisoka, hell, even Leorio, Jing, Pariston, something like that, one of the bigger players. But no, he was doing this little plot line regarding these factions. The factions, the ZU family, the Hai Li family, their conflicts, and looking for Hisoka, and all that. And Togashi unfortunately had to take a hiatus right in the middle of this mini plotline that he was telling, but he didn't feel, or he didn't give in to any pressure he may have felt in trying to make this big and grand, and instead just stuck to the plan. This was this plot thread with Hinrig and Zakuro and Morena's people, and that conflict there, and so finish that up before continuing with the story, which I really appreciate. That is very steadfast, that's very focused, and I'm very pro writers sticking to their plan and not being influenced by external things. So I love that, because the alternative could lead to the flow feeling off or choppy, or things just not feeling very cohesive. So great decision to just continue with this, even if some people may have been let down that none of the huge characters were involved with this. Overall, the art of the chapter looked really good. I thought it was intentionally raw and rough in the fights, and it flowed really well, and there were some nice bits of detail of the interior of the boat here and there. And yeah, the characters look good, the backgrounds look good, the action flowed well. I was a fan. And like I said, this is lower key, no big characters, no huge events, but it felt very organic and it flowed, and the art helped to complement that. It was a simple chapter, but it was standard Hunter x Hunter quality, which meant to me that I ate it up. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So in terms of the plot, it starts with the GU gang leader, or the underboss Hinrig, continuing to pursue Hisoka, while also combating with Morena and her people, who were the benefactors of the fourth prince, Sedyednik, however you pronounce it, while continuing along that path as well. So kind of multitasking, looking for Hisoka while also fighting off and drawing out Morena's people. So the GU gang, the GU family, is associated with their benefactor, Prince Zhang Lei. They control Tier 4, they're quite powerful, they're quite adaptable and intelligent and well-run. And like I alluded to, they're in conflict and combat with the Hai Li family, Morena's people. Benefactor was Sedyednik, though notably, as Hinrig states here, he's backed out. And the Cha-R family, whose benefactor is the 7th prince. So their plan here is to pursue Hisoka and at the same time ward off Morena's people and kind of draw her out a little bit. And Hinrig is here and he's ordering Zakuro, who is this blood manipulation guy, really cool, and Lynch. And their dynamic is fun. I found it pretty engaging, pretty cute. And I liked it a lot. It helped add some, I guess, bits of silliness and levity and charm to a chapter that is otherwise very, straight-laced, cutthroat, pragmatic, a little bit cold. But Zakuro, using his blood manipulation technique, sends his blood off to find Hisoka. He has these little blood minions, these tiny things with eyes, and he sends them all off to go find them. And Lynch, who's with him, is grossed out by this, but he just calls them his little heroes, that they're gonna dissipate in 30 to 40 minutes, but they're all heroes of his, which I found kinda, again, a little bit adorable, and a cool use of his power. And Lynch is much more straightforward, would prefer to just go and punch people in the face, and, like I said, fun dynamic. Now, Hinrig has a power called Biohazard, which has the ability to turn any tool or device or thing into an animal while retaining its original function. And the way it's applied in this chapter is very JoJo's. It's very creative, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. We get this really cool page where he's walking with his bird surrounding him, looks really raw, really impressive, and we see how resourceful he can be as he's searching out these things. He goes to a soldier, he talks with him, he seems to be quite personable, and the soldier joins him, and they start asking people about if they've seen things, and they eventually get to an older couple who have a camera, and they ask to look through the camera. They then reimburse them for the camera in case anything happens to it, and they look through it, and Hinrig sees through this that the Hai Li family is keeping a watch on the most accessible areas, the common access areas. So he sees that the Hai Li family is monitoring these things, and so not only does he have to be careful, but he might be able to monitor them as well through understanding where they're situated. So it's very tense, very tactical. Reminds me a lot of Fate Zero and the Holy Grail War and all the little details that the masters set up with their familiars and, how they approach things. It's very tense and tactical, and I really buy into that sort of approach. Like, these are very competent people who are very tactically astute and intelligent. So he then takes his camera, he changes it into a cat, and using this cat, starts to record and monitor the area where he saw the Hai Li family member. We then go forward and we see that 3 Hai Li family members see Hinrig, and all 3 are in their level 20s. So just to recap, what that means is they're all part of Morena's group, the Hai Li family. And so what's going on here is their boss Morena, who, one of my favorite Succession War characters, by the way, if you didn't know that already, her ability is Contagion. So what she does is, through the saliva of member 0, she's member 0, anyone who has this exchange through saliva, done through a kiss, is able to increase their levels. They level up as they kill people, and the more they level up, the more aura they accrue, the more power they get as well. And once they reach level 20, they get their own ability. And then once they reach a level 100, they become a new member 0 and can become the next sort of Morena to start their own sort of little contagion network or whatever. It's an infection sort of thing. It's got lots of ties to the Queen Ant stuff in Chimera Antark, but what I like a lot about it that distinguishes it is it has basis in Morena's character motivations, which are very, very misanthropic, to do with the neglect she had as this illegitimate child. Illegitimate children to royalty are cut and pretty much dismissed and forgotten. And this imbued in her this total hatred for humanity and the world at large, society, so much of how it functions. And this is the core and basis of her motivations. And so I like how that itself is this toxic poison that poisons everyone around her and kind of acts back against the world in this sort of way. It's similar, in my opinion, to how the Phantom Troop get back at the world that tried to stifle them and neglect them and oppress them in the only way they know how. Morena would not be doing any of this if she was treated fairly from a child, or as a child, excuse me. But because she was treated unfairly as a child, because she did grow to hate the world, she is fighting back in this way. And her crew and how they gain these powers and this aura and how it multiplies and infects outwards is a direct reaction to her abuse. And that's the consequence of that sort of thing, of that sort of treatment. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. It really integrates with Togashi's sort of critical lens on the state of society, on humanity, on all that sort of thing. But yes, these three members are in their level 20s, so they're all between I think 22 and 29. And so they've killed a couple people each at least, and they've gained their first abilities. And they see Hinrig, and so they begin pursuing him, seeing him as an underboss of the enemy family. Now one of them, and forgive my pronunciation, Padile? I'm gonna say Padai, is a genuine psychopath. He is just twisted beyond belief. He just likes to kill. He loves to feel the visceral reaction of how it feels to kill. The flesh, the blood, the moment life is taken, he says, and he gets off from it almost. And so his ability is to turn his hand into a hammer, so he can turn his hand into tools, or weapons, or whatever. And he thinks to himself that his greatest wish is to become a weapon so he can feel all these things. The blood, the guts, the flesh, all of the kills, feel it more viscerally than ever, and so that's kind of reflective of his power. But yeah, that was his greatest wish, and now through Morena and what she's given him, this purpose and these means, he can do it. And so because she's liberated him in this way and allowed him to live in the way he wants to live, he thinks of her as his savior. He is so appreciative of her, and he looks at her as this sort of dark goddess. She is, for these people, he's an example, I guess, personification of it. I'm sure there are many others like him, but we're seeing here that she is this liberator for these people who otherwise aren't able to express themselves in the way they like to. Now, obviously, he's not a sympathetic character. He's a psychopath, he's a horrible person, but it just makes them feel very real and genuine, and it adds nuance to it. It adds believability and human nature to these characters, and it just makes it all that more engaging. And through the way that she liberates them in this way, and through the way that she's this focal point, this leader that bands these people together for a common purpose, and in so doing allows them to enact their will on the world in the way they couldn't before. Through this, she kind of reminds me of Crollo, of his role in The Spider, which is interesting. But yeah, I love Morena. She's only been physically in one chapter, but that one chapter was so substantial. I love what she brings to the table, and we're getting more and more indirect details through these characters in the Hailey family. And so I just really want more and more of her. I don't want her to be killed off early. That would be a bit disappointing for me, unless it's done in a really effective Togashi-esque way. We'll see. But I just wanted more from Morena, and so this chapter was really good for that. So Padai goes after Hinrig, but Hinrig has actually, the pigeons that were following him around, the birds, were actually made from handcuffs, which then trap Padai. Again, cool application of the technique. Feels very JoJo's. The other members, the other two, try to shoot the pigeons, but it doesn't work, they're impermeable, and so they just leave him. They just leave him for dead. They go, this is it, we can't go any further, and they abandon him essentially. And maybe it's just me, maybe I'm reaching a bit, but there seemed to be a bit of panic in the expressions from Padai. He seemed to be, very frantic, maybe upset at the fact that they abandoned him, or maybe just upset because he was captured and he lost his purpose or whatever. I don't know, but something about this interaction made me feel like he felt hard done by being abandoned by them. Maybe, could be, I don't know, because like Hinrig says, his friends left him, and that can't feel good. Either way, regardless, in this one chapter, Padai isn't a triple S character or anything, don't get me wrong, but I do like the little details that I've talked about here that help him to stand out as substantial and human and real. It just makes it all more engaging. But yeah, Hinrig eventually subdues him and he kills him, and he thinks to himself, I wish I could have been a bit more discreet because he caused a bit of a scene, which isn't great for their overall motives and and outcomes, and yeah, it's not great. And then he thinks to himself, Misha, I'm counting on you. I don't know exactly who Misha is or could be. It could be an unknown character that we're going to be introduced to later. I've seen some people say that it could be the cat. He named the cat that he turned into, the recording camera that he turned into a cat earlier. He named that Misha, and so he's depending on it to give him vital information. That could be it too. I'm not exactly sure. Let me know what you think. Either way, he is counting on Misha. And at the same time, the other two, the ones who ran away, they go back and retreat to Morena. They say, we need to get advice from Morena on how to proceed because these guys, this guy, Henrik in particular, is very competent, he's very clever and adaptable, his powers are not to be, scoffed at, and they don't want to be caught, and they don't want to have to be forced to give up the location of their hideout. So they're going back to ask Morena some stuff, how to proceed. So this is a nice crumb that makes me think, are we going to see Morena? Are we going to see more of her as they go back to her? Or is the point of view going to shift from these characters? Is this part done, and are we going to go back to Karapika or Krollo or something? But either way, they're going to go back to Morena. Morena's been mentioned a ton in this chapter, so I can't imagine that we're not going to see her sometime soon, which makes me really, really excited, because like I said, she is one of the most exciting characters. There's Siryednik, Fourth Prince, Halkenberg, who I really like a lot as well. There's Oito, there's Beyond, who hasn't had a lot to do lately, but it's still very interesting. And a couple others, but she's right up there as one of the characters who has the most potential. But yeah, that's where the chapter ends. It progresses the plot for this mafia subplot, which I enjoyed. At first, honestly, I didn't really think that I'd be super invested in these mafia factions and how they're associated with their benefactors being some of the princes. So I wasn't sure that I'd be super invested in that, but it's very interesting. The personalities are cool. I like Zakuro, he's very quirky and fun. I like Henrig, he's very competent, he seems to know exactly what he's doing, and we get a bit of Morena's faction and the people that are loyal to her through this chapter as well, and their role in all of this, and how they try to interact and go up in the levels, but also they know when they're when the task is too big for them, so they know when they need to ask for advice or regroup. But one of my favorite things about this chapter, kind of how, like what I alluded to, was that idea of Morena being this savior. I hope that's explored a little bit more because I love that. This antagonist, similar to Krollo, who has liberated the people that are associated with her as they carry out these functions that seem to be greater than the sum of their parts. More important than the roles they carry out is the entity they serve, and that entity grants them freedom at the same time. It's just really cool. I've always loved that aspect of the spider, and it's being reflected here as well. Aside from that, I liked Henrig. He's very smart, very adaptable, like I was alluding to, and his use of his powers is very creative, very resourceful, and he is a bit of a force, I don't imagine that he's gonna be the type of guy to take down Hisoka, but I do imagine that he'll get decently far here, or at least have a role to play in propping up other characters. Like, he's gonna be pretty important functionally, and he's interesting enough for me to want to see where he goes from here. I do want to see more from Lynch and Zakuro. I find them, like I said, kinda darkly cute, darkly adorable in a way. Some lingering things I'm wondering about for the next chapter is who is Misha, obviously. Could just be the cat. Also, what about the higher levels from Morena's crew? The ones who are, we saw these level 20 people, and they were overpowered by Henrig, but Henrig is very competent, so they had at least an ability and they knew how to use it. I wonder what the higher levels are like, and around which level will they become on Henrig's level, or potentially as high up as some of the bigger players in this arc. Are the Phantom Troop within their grasp? Could they pose a bit of a fight to the Phantom Troop? Individual members, I mean. Who knows, maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but curious to see how it plays out. I want more Morena, but not in a rush for it, not desperate for it, and I'm just wondering, is this plotline done here, and things will happen, implication, subtext, off-screen for the Mafia families, and will we switch to a different point of view, or will we continue this way? I don't know, but we'll see. Overall, awesome to have Togashi back. Like I said, the art was consistent, I enjoyed it, the fights flowed well, the powers were cool, the story progressed seamlessly, and despite not being the most eye-popping content, maybe not what everyone wanted from Togashi's return, I think it was the right choice to do this sort of low-key continuation of what his plan ultimately was. It was good, it helped these plot lines progress, it fleshed out some of the characters associated with these mafia factions, and it's just really cool to see these families vie for power and position themselves and be very tactical as they vie for power and try to progress. It was great, it was awesome to have Togashi back. I can't wait for next week. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this chapter, or anything I said. If I got anything wrong, please be sure to point it out. This is just a very casual, off-the-cuff sort of thing, and I could have missed something. So yeah, let me know any of your thoughts. If you'd like to support my ability to make videos like this, you can pledge to my Patreon, that would be very appreciated, but obviously not required. And there are a few perks there. Early access to One Piece videos as well, early access to certain analytical, polished videos as well, stuff like that. That aside though, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so, where I tweet about Hunter x Hunter pretty often, especially now that it's come back. If you'd like to follow me on Twitch so you can watch my read-throughs of it every week as it comes out, you can do so. Follow me in the description or pinned comment. And yeah, like I said, share your thoughts if you'd like to. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll be able to see you next week with a slightly less nasally and sick voice. Many thanks, guys. Have a good one.